Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Sarah Lewis, and I started this venture as a way to get information to moms and parents on topics that are really important to us while we are in the midst of this pandemic. All of our lives have been upended, personally and professionally, and now we're battling with what to do next. How can we best take care of ourselves and our families? I have a special guest today, Farah Wigand. And she is, and I'm going to have to read my notes because she has a wonderful title, a registered dietitian, nutritionist, licensed dietitian, and certified specialist in obesity, weight management in South Carolina. And Farah founded Real For You Nutrition with a primary focus on adult weight management. She has been a practicing registered dietitian nutritionist for 14 years. She started her career embracing the pathopsychology of nutrition care in the acute and critical care hospital settings. She has practiced in various locations across the country, such as Chicago, Kentucky, Massachusetts, and South Carolina. And we are thrilled to have her here with us today. First, Farah, you are a mother as well, correct?
Yes, I am. We're keeping it real, for
So
sure.
everything we're going to talk about today, obviously, you yourself practice these.
I'm living the dream, for sure. I have a 7-year-old and a 10-year-old. So,
You're
absolutely.
you're a boy mom, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Full
So
court press, for
we're,
sure.
I mean that I'm joining the team, second one on the way. So that's
Oh,
exciting.
great.
So that being said, so we'll go right into the questions, and I know there's a lot of information here, but the purpose of today, obviously, so folks know, is that we want to obviously best take care of ourselves and our families, nutritionally, boosting our immune system, those sorts of things. So, and right now, many of us have been inside. We've been isolated, quarantined for a few months now. And of course, that means we're not exposed to the usual elements that we would have been exposed to. So you run that risk of lowering your immune system or strengthening your immune system. And
Sure.
now we're having the conversation of reintroducing ourselves back to, maybe family or friends or just a public setting. And so I would love to hear from you as we have those conversations. What are ways that parents can boost, their immune system and their children's immune system to prepare for next steps in getting out?
Sure, sure. So I would say there's not a magic wand. The number one is, it's all over everywhere, and that's hand washing. That 20 seconds and that happy birthday song is vital. And there's a lot to encompass. We have a lot of transitioning and handoff, if you will, and a lot of anxiety with the upcoming introduction with, especially like with Accelerate SC, what's going on currently in South Carolina. So just, take a deep breath and wash the hands and, wear those masks and do your best, that social distancing, things of that nature. So definitely hand washing and adequate sleep. This is something that, it's so funny because this time period, okay, we're moving into May. Happy Mother's Day, by the way. But 5 months ago, we were all working on these journeys for 2020. And so I worked a lot with behavior change with my clients. And, in terms of sleep is such a huge component for immune system, for mental clarity, for improving resistance. And so making sure that parents as well as the children are getting adequate sleep. And I'm going to refer to my notes as well, because I don't see babies all the time. So those the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends the infants 4 months to 12 months of age about a 12 to 16 hour, that includes naps, so it's 12 to 16 hours a day. And then toddlers 1 to 2, 11 to 14 hours a day. Preschoolers 3 to 5 years, 10 to 13 hours a day, and that includes naps. Naps are included with these time frames. Children 6 to 12, about 9 to 12 hours. And then teenagers, they, 8 to 10 hours or so, teenagers 13 to 18. So just keeping in mind, knowing your child and knowing what they need. I know for me personally, my oldest, he'll go a few days with, a lots of sports and a lot of excitement and stimulation. And then, 2 days later, he's up having nightmares walking the house. And I'm like, what's going on? But, that's my child. And so just, I think it's important to recognize what your child needs. So sleep is important. And then exercise. So I know the dietitian, please don't throw anything at your screen while you're watching, but exercise, that is the number one predictor of, in terms of weight management. I know we're not talking about that right now, but it is a huge predictor in success with weight management. And it is also a form of medicine. So I hope that someday in my lifetime, physicians will begin to have their script pad and hand it off with an exercise prescription or a referral process. I think they're doing a great job integrating prevention and exercise and talking about that, especially within the past 5 years. But it's definitely important. So exercise is that mind, body, and soul. And so it can be fun. It doesn't have to be necessarily that you have to turn on a videotape or that you have to go out and run. You can do, recreational activity, cleaning the house. And this is important for kids too. Kids need ages 7 to like 18. They all need absolutely 60 minutes a day minimum of exercise. So keep that in mind. And then in terms of adults, we're looking at, 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity just to make sure that we're improving our health. So that goes into immune system, really trying to get those hormones in balance, and that exercise helps improve sleep. By the way, as we talk about sleep, I talk about it all the time. The recommendation I don't want to forget to tell folks to exclude the screens from the children's bedroom. Okay. Please, please, please. If you're working on this great ritual of sleep and you're putting all your energy into it and you're just doing your best, and then there's a screen in there and a TV on, that sleep quality is nim. So if you have someone that really, if that's a common practice that you're looking at, maybe try to transition to like, some lullaby music or just some relaxation music so you can kind of make that change there. So exercise is important in terms of boosting that immune system. And then healthy diet. So there's no magic, Sarah. Like I said, I don't have a magic wand, but really and truly, and I'm going to grab my plate here because I think this is a fabulous help. This is the USDA My Plate. And this is a fabulous guide. You want to aim for antioxidant. So that is in your fruit and vegetable category. And I'm hoping everybody can see it, but it's right here and it's half of your plate.
Well, looks perfect. Yeah, it's great.
We all talk about, what are these superfoods? What's the magic food? What should I take? How much vitamin C? How much zinc? What should I do? But really and truly, when you go back to motivating yourself to eat healthy, you really want to look at, okay, the benefit here is my immune system. I'm going to take the extra step, this 40 minutes to cook dinner, because this food is not processed. I'm going to reap those nutrient benefits from that. And that's your reward, is that quality. So I think that's important. Half of your plate or a quarter of your whole grains, a quarter of your, I'm all jumbled. About a half of your grains should come from whole grains. So, focusing on, if you're one family that never eats wheat bread, go ahead and kind of integrate a little bit of 100% whole wheat from time to time. I have some that start out and they do like the top white bread and the bottom is that whole wheat. And so it's a good way to just kind of mix it up versus throwing somebody a piece of whole wheat bread, because that's a huge transition. But that's important. Your dairy, it supports, immune system, digestive health, protein, strong bones. And, it's really important. I think people have really neglected dairy in their diet these days. And there's a lot of, transitions with different diets out there, which is perfectly fine, but you can still find a way to incorporate dairy if you don't use animal dairy sources. You can aim for, using the unsweet almond milk, or a soy is a great alternative. So just really getting those food groups in there is important for sure. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hit on so many different things that I thought about, like with my cell phone. Okay, like we've seen the articles. You were talking about the lighting with the pads and the TV, the transient light is what it's called. And it
Yes.
actually does keep you up. I mean, that's not even questionable. That's a fact. And that makes
Yes.
you overstimulated. You can't get down. And my husband and I joke about, I'm one of those that, like, I need at least 8 hours of sleep at night.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, this far advanced in pregnancy, I really could do 10. And I like to get it if I
You
can.
deserve
But
it.
anyway, but my husband's like, you and your sleep. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm going to live forever. Because
Oh,
like I get
I
a lot of
love
sleep.
it. Well, that's just how that's your mold. That's how you thrive. I think it's important. And what's hard is that everything comes at you electronically. So
Mhm.
moms are all here, moms, dads, whoever's listening. I love my teachers. It's Teacher Appreciation Week. They are great, but I'm getting teacher emails, work emails. I mean, everything is coming at you, and you have this pressure of, wow, I just, 25 emails just hit in a matter of 2 minutes. And so I always recommend really separating yourself. I didn't talk about mental health with improving your immune system either, but definitely allowing your mental health um, to blossom, and managing that stress is a great way to do that. And so, it is okay to put your technology down. And if your boss calls and has something to say about it, say, you know what, I was taking a breather. I always say, take a beat. I was taking a beat. I'm going to be better off after that beat, in 5 minutes when I recharge, versus if you were to talk to me, 5 minutes ago, or, whether it is you're trying to go to sleep or whatnot. So I think, that can be hard for a lot of us, is that work-life balance thing, and, that technology. So.
Definitely, and especially now, because we're almost having to combine it all at every single hour, because people are having to work from home and take care of the children at the same time. So that balance has got to be really difficult. And I wanted to mention as well, because I know that you have a lot more even specific, thorough information than what we're talking about today, that we are going to add all of the transcripts, the content that and even more on the allmomsneedhelp.com website. So just make sure everybody goes there after we're finished with our interview, because we're going to have more information, more specifics on what people can eat. I mean, different examples of legumes and beans and different fruits and vegetables that people can eat. And I do love that you talked about, like for me, I have a digestive disorder. So there's a lot of things that I have to cut out, but we are so blessed in this country that there are so many
We
other
are.
options. Almond milk all day long. I'm okay with almond milk. I can do it. And, I can figure out which fruits and vegetables are going to work for me and still do it. But some people have celiac disease. They can't do the whole wheat.
Yes.
There are other options, right? There's the gluten-free. So we are fortunate there are other alternatives that are still going to be healthier for you than those
Mm-hmm.
heavy processed starchy stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot of food aversions out there. And I think, they're, the grocery store is just like, booming, with aisles. Like my kids are like, Mom, can we go to Aldi? And I'm like, why? Because it only has 4 aisles. They love it. And they're like, the simplicity is like, they're like, we're in, we're out. It's great. But you're right. We do, with our 30 aisle grocery stores, we have so many options. And absolutely, no matter what it is, if you have celiac disease or, all of my diabetics and, my cardiovascular disease, there's so many options to choose that are out there. And I think what's hard sometimes is that there's a lot of misinformation, is you don't know what to choose. And I see this a lot. And there's a lot, we can access that information anywhere, so that can make it challenging as well. And that's where the dietitians come in. There's a lot of great resources with these grocery stores these days. They're teaming up with dietitians as that are employed through them, and offering several different programs and opportunities with like recipes and things like that. So yeah, for sure. Sorry, I keep talking.
No, you're great.
I go on and on and on.
Yeah, and well, obviously you know what you're talking about, and you love what you do. That's always a good sign. I did want to ask too. I know you just provided vital nutrients and ideas that people can have, but does it change by gender? We hear about sometimes when you're on diets, the calories can change or whatever. But do men and women basically eat the same thing, or does it matter?
Rock it out. They can eat the same thing, and I think calories differentiate depending on our age and, our muscular, status. And, the only true way to know, caloric needs is to, use an underwater weighing method that they use oftentimes with athletes to really, it's kind of a breathing method that they'll look at their oxygen, consumption, and really see what's going on metabolically. But we don't have to always get that complicated. And really and truly, I think men and women, we just kind of make it simple and always go back to this. Okay. Because as moms and dads in this busy life that we have, when you make it complex, where do you go? McDonald's. Right? So we're sitting over in Chick-fil-A's drive-through that has 25 cars waiting in line the day that they open, because we're tired and exhausted and it's complicated. But, remembering back to the peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a side of fruit as a night of dinner that you just want to take a break fits right into that. And yes, I did say jelly, light on the jelly, but you can have some jelly with your peanut butter if you like it. So, and then, there's sun butter or whatnot, whatever type of, butter you like. So I think men and women, they don't differentiate too significantly. It's just really focusing on, whole foods. So.
Yeah. And I'm always impressed by some of the jellies like really good jellies that are not bad for you. And honey. Sometimes I do honey with my child too.
Yes.
Me myself, why not?
Right. Just a little.
And I add flaxseed to everything. So, that way I think I'm like, this is good. So, okay. So you've covered a lot of things. And, so what are some good nutritional items, I guess, that are snacks that you would recommend for parents while they're at home with their children? Keeping in mind, obviously, how odd things are right now, that sometimes you go to the grocery store and they're stocked full, and then sometimes you go and it's completely bare. So general guidelines or ideas you might have on that.
Sure. With snacks, I think string cheese and well, here in the South this time of year, I really start talking about shelf stable snacks often, because those of us that are in the car in transition or we're on trips or whatnot, you don't always have a chance to pack that cooler. So, nuts and sunflower seeds and, so a snack, you really want to streamline your snack. And so keep it about 200. I give kind of an approximate of 200 calories or so, just so that if we're eating several snacks a day, they don't add up. And that's, just for general, the general population. And, so kind of streamline that. And then, shelf stable things like, seeds and nuts and packaging, protein bars, the Nature Valley and Nature Valley protein is a great brand that includes a nice balance and blend of, some healthy fats, some protein, and a little bit of carbohydrate. Heinz got a great, kind of, less ingredient, type bar. And then there's one that I actually am going to refer to my notes here because I wrote it down for you guys. The Built Bar is a nut-free option. So that is one that I tend to recommend a lot out there. But there's lots of protein bars. So those are great. Making your own trail mix. That's, you can, I think I included a recipe for you guys to include, kind of doing like a quarter cup of that snack. And frozen, this is my new favorite. So frozen organic yogurt tubes. So this, I know I'm not a brand. I hate to like bring up brands, but Stonyfield has one that's awesome, and it's not too high in sugar. And like, you just freeze those tubes and you grab them, and like, they're shelf stable for like a good 2 or 3 hours. So things like that are awesome. And then refrigerated options, so string cheese. Of course, your yogurts, you can do dairy-free yogurts. There's plenty out there. That aisle is overwhelming, even for me. I'm like, Lord have mercy, who thought that the yogurt wall was going to take up the whole entire section? But it does. It is like forever long. And but there's a lot of great options. Skyr is one that if you like a thick yogurt, that's a good low-fat yogurt option, and nice and thick. And then your Greek yogurts are out there. So, avocado, I can go on and on, whole wheat Triscuits. So, just any type of blend of snacks that includes like 1 or 2 food groups is the way I like to kind of think of it, is the way to go. Because it's a good way to meet those dietary guidelines as well, where we're encompassing a variety of foods in our diet. So hopefully that helped. I could go on and on with snacks.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's great too, because right now I think a lot of people want that comfort of having the snacks, and it's easy to grab, and it's helpful for adults and children too, because we're all kind of like, let me just grab something. I need to do this. I'm gonna do that. Or if you're in the middle of teaching, you want to give them a snack that's healthy, and you can pop that yogurt while you're still studying and that sort of thing. That's very helpul.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Sarah, because I have to talk about this as well. So the COVID-19, I'm sure a lot of us have heard about it. And so we were talking on a radio show about it. And so we really started talking a lot about mindless eating. And one of the hosts, he was like, I've really been, in the closet grabbing, snacks. And so we were like, I'm gonna call him D. You're like, you're comfort eating. Like, this is a huge emotional thing that you have going on. And so one thing that is important that helps with that, if anybody's struggling with that, is to take your snacks to the table and really focus on that snack being consumed versus just mindlessly like, oh, okay, I'm studying, so I'm used to studying and having my snack. So every time you study, that brain is going to trigger, snack. And I use this example a lot. The bathroom. Most of us, we don't eat food in the bathroom. So when you go to the bathroom, you don't necessarily, it's not a trigger for you to eat food like when you walk into the kitchen. So I think kind of establishing that environment to have that snack at can be helpful to prevent that mindless eating. So I had to throw that in there.
That's a great point. Maybe that's where that routine or that schedule comes in, that you're gonna snack or you're gonna eat at a certain amount of time, and which kind of goes back to, of course, people say you're not supposed to sit for several hours without moving. So like every hour you want to get up and move, that sort of thing. And so you kind of when you start putting some of that stuff in that process in place, you are more likely to follow it and not fall to the prey of
that default
patient. Yeah.
Like, I'm tired, I want some food, or I'm stressed. But it's a hard time, and I think we're all human, and emotional eating is a whole nother topic for another day. But I think it's very real in terms of what we have going on right now. We have a lot of uncontrollables. And as much as I like to make light of it with food, because it's like, well, this is something you can control. You know, you can get your kids in the kitchen and you can embrace the beauty of eating. We still have, you know, a lot of folks that, you know, are in food deserts that don't have, you know, accessibility. And then two, you have those that are gaining weight that they're not even necessarily aware of. So yeah.
Well, and you brought up a good point is that, you know, it is true that right now, this is kind of for me, one of the saddest parts of this pandemic is that there are people that are food insecure. And when the schools closed, it's true, sadly, there are children that, but for the school, they may not eat. Not getting access to those meals, I think that's one of the most heartbreaking things just to think about. But, you know, on that point, any thoughts or guidance for families that may be food insecure, don't have the access to the funds to buy the food right now, or can't get access to the food? I know every state and every area is different, but you know,
Sure,
guidance.
sure. Absolutely. You know, I've talked a lot about this lately as well. And a lot of our food-based organizations are, you know, for example, here in South Carolina, we have that Food Share Columbia, and Food Share is throughout the United States. So their website is foodshare.org. And so you can always access the Food Share organizations. They, you know, I think screening. So when I see a client, that's part of my screening process is to kind of, you know, ask my questions are very, very long that they have to fill out. Like I'm that person that you don't want to come see because you have to fill out 4 sheets of paper before you can come in. But it helps me get to know the patient. And one of those questions that I usually will ask is, you know, it's a great, you know, within the past 12 months, I'm actually reading it here. Were you ever worried that you would run out of food before you had money to purchase more? And then you know, you can have them circle, was that often true, sometimes true, or never true in your household? So that's one question to kind of screen. And if you're a provider or, you know, any type of provider, whether it's, you know, childcare or, you know, healthcare, you know, make sure you're kind of doing that type of screening. And then when you find those individuals, I think having that referral, so referring them to nutrition assistance programs, so SNAP, and I've included the resource there for you to share, because that's a great opportunity, and just kind of linking them up. And I think using within the past 12 months can really help you assess, you know, is this something that's really been ongoing that we're targeting, or is this something that's been a new transition? And then there's definitely the food banks as well. You know, Harvest Hope is one that's local around in this area. So there's been a lot of stepping up, I think, in the community. But you know, what's hard is that we're so busy that, you know, we don't know what's available. So I think kind of communicating, you know, to the correct resources can be helpful. So farmers markets are getting ready to open up too. So that's a good, you know, finding that farmers market resource can be helpful to just, you know, kind of support that farming industry. And they do a great job reaching into some of those pockets that don't have access to food. So thankfully, you know, we have them. So
That's a great point. And I've even seen commercials like Food Line. I mean, some of the grocery stores are trying to assist in their communities wherever they are, because, you know, it is a concern. And then, you know, talking about what we're talking about is that you want to make wise choices when you get access to the good food. And what I've learned, even I've had to, for my family, you know, you can refrigerate bananas. I mean, you can freeze, you know, some of these things and make it last longer. So instead of you're like, oh my gosh, should I get the ramen noodles because I can have that and it'll sit on my shelf for 6 months, or should
yes,
I get this? Go with the fresh stuff. There's always a way to preserve it. There's a way to keep it
yes.
for longer.
Yes, absolutely. Like you can freeze. And then, blanching vegetables, like if you just kind of throw them in and blanch them for a minute, for, a few minutes or whatnot, and pull them out and then let them cool and then freeze. That's a great way to keep the stability in the freezer as well. You can find a lot of healthy, you know, perishable items, beans that you can rinse. I recommend that a lot, especially when I have, some food insecurity I'm working with. And, you can kind of like look at beans as a protein source and then couple it with like a pound of lean, turkey meat, so you can stretch that meal to feed a family of 5 or 6. So the canned goods are, definitely, we always say fresh, frozen, canned, but canned goods they serve a purpose and there is nothing wrong with them. So I think if you do any type of, vegetable or fruit or protein, just trying to rinse that excess sodium off of that off of that food, to kind of help reduce that sodium a little bit in the diet. And you can really make it happen with canned food. So
That's a good point, getting creative.
yes.
So we'll segue a little bit towards supplements and that sort of thing, and boosting immunity as well. So we've always heard that making wise choices with food and supplements affect your whole health.
Sure.
Would you say that that's true?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we do it, or else we would be eating ramen noodles every day.
I think you put it well by saying you are what you eat, and that is true. It's what goes in comes out.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, letting food be thy medicine. And so I say that again, let the food be thy medicine. And I can't remember, I don't know if it's Hippocrates or what, but in the medical profession, you always see, in the dietitian world, you see that on someone's slide at some presentation, but it's so true. And I think of exercise and activity and time to yourself and the ability to say no are also two, forms of medicine. I'm totally spearing off topic, so sorry. So back to supplements. Here's another, I wish there was a magic wand. Like I would be giving my kids loads of whatever, if it was a way to prevent, COVID-19 and the virus. But right now there's not anything, that we have. There's not any research that indicates that, vitamin D excess supplementation is going to, decrease our risk for what's my word? For getting the virus. Contracting is what I was thinking of. But if you're vitamin D deficient, now that's a whole nother story. If, it can suppress that immune system if you have deficiency present. So, going to your well visits, to the doctor, there's a lot of telehealth going on right now. Checking up, not running out of that medication is important. And then also too, I've gotten a lot of questions about vitamin C. I actually had my husband come to me a few mornings ago, and we have this awesome landscaping business that we just put a pool in, long story short. And so the owner of the business, he had told him, he's like, do you know that vitamin D and vitamin C, if you take that supplement, it can really prevent you from getting coronavirus. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like my husband comes in and he's telling me this, and I'm like, really? So it was great. And I didn't even go there because, we all have things to do, but right now, there's not really anything. Vitamin C supplementation, in addition to what we need in a day, if you're a smoker, your requirements are higher for vitamin C. Excuse me, I don't know if I said vitamin D or vitamin C, but I'm talking about vitamin C. So They need a little bit more of vitamin C. And then there is a little bit of research that supports the common cold and, getting over the common cold a little bit faster with some vitamin C supplementation. But you just want to be careful. Zinc is the same way. We really need some good evidence before we start popping supplementation. And I'm a huge fan of just saving your money and when you're not sure, and really focusing on the diet. If you're one that doesn't do fruits and vegetables because you don't like to rinse them, you don't like to cut them up, that whole preparation thing, will spend the money on that prep, that you buy them in the grocery store already ready to go. And, then you won't have to, spend money on 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C that you really don't know what it's doing. I have been like, now I feel like I'm on the pulpit, because I've had patients and they say, well, I feel like every time that I take vitamin C in the winter, I don't get a cold, or, it just works for me. And I will say, if that works for you, it's okay. Check with your healthcare provider, with your physician, make sure there's not any type of medication interaction, which with vitamin C, oftentimes there's not. And then it is a water soluble vitamin. So sometimes, what that means is that we call it expensive urine is what we call it. So you pee the excess out. But that doesn't necessarily mean that, that's your red flag ticket to start taking vitamin C. But that's really, in terms of supplementation, there's, with the coronavirus right now, there's not anything. And I'm sorry, I keep going on and on, but I will finish with letting, folks know that there is a study. They're doing actually, I wrote this down for you guys. It is a randomized control study in China. And it's currently, they're probably obviously in the beginning stages, but what they're looking at is they're evaluating the clinical efficacy of vitamin C infusions for the treatment of severe COVID-19 pneumonia. So that is a current, very new evolving study that is taking place. And that's definitely in the hospital, but there's not anything right now, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, I think that is, that's really interesting. And I can only imagine right now across the whole world, what kind of tests are taking place that we don't even know about. Studies, studies and tests on patients as we try to still try to save lives right now, which is we're still at the beginning of it, that part of it.
Yeah.
But we've certainly heard on this end as well, vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. And of course, coming from a pregnant person, you can't take vitamin C is fine, but you can't take those things. So for me, it's, is how I think of vitamin D. It's the sunshine, it's the fresh air, it's getting out.
Yes.
So it's, if you're not sure if you need vitamin D, getting out and getting that sunshine and getting that fresh air safely, carefully.
Yes, absolutely.
That's real vitamin D. That's really good. And there's a variety of ways to get vitamin C, as you mentioned, through your foods. Zinc is a different thing, because you really do have to get a supplement for that. And there are different ways to take it, but yeah, asking your physician. And in fact, I'm going to interview a pharmacist, I think next week, and there's ways that they can take your blood and find out, are you low on these different
Sure,
areas.
absolutely.
Yeah.
On the intracellular level, yep, there's a lot of great testing that's out there that you can look to see if there's some deficiency there. And so that's great. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's definitely what you want to do if you suspect any type of deficiency. Just be patient, because those tests can take time. But yeah, that's the best way to know. And then two, you talked about fresh air and sources of vitamin D. So that kind of brings me back to, stress and managing stress. And I will be honest, literally today was one of those days that, so I'm a normal mom. I don't think I took a shower until 3 o'clock. I got up at 5. I started working. I did homeschooling with the kids. I went back to working. And there's a lot of us doing the same thing. So I think during that, within this, I call it, sometimes it's a storm, but then when you complete it, you're like, I rocked it today. Like, look at these kids, they're getting it. But I think, in the midst of that, go for those walks, get those kids needs breaks as well, for that mental health. And that really helps improve your, and reduce that stress, because cortisol is, is when you're under stress, that cortisol, which is a hormone in our body, it drives up. And so, that's can be very, very harmful in terms of, your immunity. So that's another reason why you want to get that fresh air and get the vitamin D from the sun. Thank goodness we live in this beautiful South Carolina sun. But I think that's really, really important. And then if you're one that's sensitive to the sun, or that wears sunscreen, or that's consistently vitamin D deficient, or maybe you don't know, then you can always have your healthcare provider check that level. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, everyone has their individual needs, and they'll kind of, as they work through this, they're going to know, oh, I feel depleted here, but I feel good here. And
Yes.
but I appreciate you coming on, because you've covered really a lot. You've given us a lot to think about, but you've covered everything from, exercise,
Good.
vitamins, nutrients, what to eat, what not to eat, how much to eat, and sleep, which, I'm a big fan. So
We
that's
all need to hear that.
very
Wait,
important.
we just need somebody to tell us as a mom, like, you need to go to sleep, and then it'll make you feel better. You don't have that guilt. So it is a pleasure to be here. I'm excited to have met you, and in your group, and it's great. So if you ever need anything, you let me know.
Well, we appreciate you coming in, and I do plan to put these videos on my Facebook page, on the YouTube channel, and on my website. So, of course, if anybody has any questions for Farah, feel free to ask them, and I'm sure she'll get back to us. And but I will work as fast as I can to get the content on the website, so you can actually, which will be even more thorough than what we talked about, if you can even imagine. So, so we appreciate you coming on, Farah, and appreciate you all listening today as well, because we're all in this together. All moms need help, all parents need help, and until we meet again, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well. Appreciate you.